Hello and welcome to Test Pattern, a podcast about people and their relationship with movies. I'm Angus Truskett, and each episode I'm joined by someone that I admire to talk all things film and get to know them through the movies that have shaped them. My guest today is Sydney-based writer, director, and photographer Hyun Lee. Her feature debut, French Girls, recently premiered at the Sydney Film Festival, where it was my personal highlight and favourite film at the festival. It follows Mia, a young construction worker who is scouted by a modelling agency and suddenly finds herself making more money for doing considerably less. It's a funny, strange, and deeply empathetic portrait of fashion, labour, femininity, and a young creative life in Sydney. It's also a film that spoke to me very personally, which I can't wait to get into. Hyun, welcome to Test Pattern.
Hi, thanks for having me. Wow. Didn't know it was your favorite.
It hit me on a level that I haven't been hit by for a very long time by a film. And obviously I'm in Sydney, so I don't think, but it wasn't that. It was something else about the film, which I can't wait to talk about. But yeah, I haven't felt a feeling that I once had, or a feeling that I kind of forgot about, was just there on the screen for like the entire duration, and it really took me back somewhere and made me feel a certain way, and I couldn't stop raving about the experience I had. And I was actually, you sent me a screener just for context for the listeners, and then I managed to get a Ritz ticket to, I think it was the third screening maybe, or the second screening, and it was like a Saturday night, 9 p.m, and you came in to introduce it, and it was such a this is such a cliche phrase, but it was like electricity in that room. It was so cool, and I could tell that you were a little overwhelmed. You managed to give a really lovely, heartfelt thank you, but it was a really special night, and it was like my fourth film that day. This is my Olympics.
Oh.
I know. I think watching more than one film a day, it's kind of unfair to the other films that precede it because your brain will deteriorate.
Yeah.
But it was the fourth one, and I'd seen so many at that point, and it was just it hit me on a crazy level. So thank you so much for releasing it into the wild.
I'm so flattered that you enjoyed it after having watched 3 films before that. Because, yeah, I once, out of just pure... for the sake of saying that I could do it, I watched 5 films at the State Theatre in one day. So I spent more than 10 hours in the State Theatre, one Sydney Film Festival a few years ago. And by the 3rd film, you just hate the film, no matter what it is.
100%. I don't think the placement of this film would have affected it. It just hit me. Such a cool night. Did you stick around for that screening?
I did actually watch it. I watched all 4 screenings that we had because I felt a little bit nervous about the sound mix, and so I was basically QCing the mix at every screening.
And did it pass the test?
Yeah, I was really nervous in the first one, and then I had to sort of watch them all to quiet my anxieties. And yeah, it turned out that because every theatre is different and every sound system is slightly different. So, and it's even different depending on where you sit in the cinema. So there was a certain level of just having to let it go. And, it's one of those things where only you would notice and nobody else cares.
Well, I didn't notice if it sounded bad because it sounded great from where I was sitting. Hyun, what was the last thing that you watched?
At the festival or in
anywhere in general? We don't have to do festival.
I wish I had something better to say, but the last thing I watched was Scary Movie 6 or 5 or whichever one it is that's out right now. It was for a friend's birthday, and it was exactly what you'd expect. I've already forgotten the entirety of the movie, and it's no longer in my system.
Oh, just like a fast food situation, in the moment.
Yeah,
that burger tastes good. I'm not thinking about it later.
I think there's a time and a place for all the movies. I think there's a place for junk food in the food industry, and there's a place for Scary Movie in the film world.
You're preaching to the choir. As part of my day job, I interviewed some of the cast, and I think the telltale sign of the quality of the film was normally, I'm sent to a theater or something to watch it before so I can, and I was like, so when's the screening? And they're like, oh, there will be none. You just have to, it's just chat to these people. And I was like, gotcha. Okay, I see what you, yeah, I guess it's one of those ones. And it sounds like it was. Scary movie. Were you a fan of any of the others? Are parody movies your thing?
I mean, not particularly. I remember watching the first Scary movie or the second when I was young, and I remember thinking it was funny. Yeah, I guess it's funny that cinema is so broad in its spectrum of output that on one hand you can have these really washed up franchises that are just, you know, rinsing and repeating, and then on the other hand you have indie movies that are being made for nothing and doing really well, like resonate, like Obsession and Backrooms has been the hot topic lately, but you know, films that were made for very little that are obviously resonating with audiences, and yet some part of the industry insists on making very expensive, boring movies that nobody wants to see, but then they still go see them, like me.
We still go through the drive-through sometimes after a great dinner. You know what I mean? But it's like it's so true. It's like it is such a an industry that is obsessed with, you know, making money, and so it will do tried and tested things. But there are absolutely no way anyone could predicted this horror film made for under $1 million has, you know, broken a record that was held by ET. Like no one could have seen that coming, and I kind of love that. I think that's like super exciting. It's like, oh yeah, this thing isn't dead. Like there are still surprises that audiences will dictate this is good, and not a meeting room full of people months in advance planning something. It's genuinely exciting, I think.
Yeah. I wonder if I don't know, fashion's on my mind, but I often think that these you know, explosions of popularity, not to be cynical, but I do think that human behavior and human group dynamics are very unpredictable. And you see it in the fashion world where for some reason a fad will just absolutely take off. And other times it takes decades for an idea to become recognized and popular and taken up by a mass sort of audience. And I feel like there's no rhyme or reason necessarily in these sorts of events. And I think sometimes people read into it a lot and go, oh, like YouTube filmmakers are the next big thing, or like low budget horror movies with no name cast are the next big thing. And yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to me. It feels like just what you see in the fashion world.
Sometimes it's just random. It's unexplained, and that's okay. I do think people, and especially humans, love to categorize things safely and easily for them. And it's like sometimes you can't. Sometimes a thing is just a hit, and sometimes a fashion fad is just not a fad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And it's the je ne sais quoi. Sometimes things have the X factor, and sometimes they don't.
Callback, throwback to the film. Great stealthy throw there to the film. But I'd love to know, speaking of you know, Obsession, this is a very bad way to link to the next one. What was something, and if there was anything that you would watch obsessively when you were younger, a film?
I think when I was younger, I watched a lot of SBS foreign movies, and I would go to Video Easy and get the $10 weeklies, 10 for $10. I, at one point as a teenager, learned what the festival laurels meant, and I would purposely sort of pick out the DVD covers that had festival laurels on them, you know, if it won the Palme d'Or or whatever.
That's so funny.
You know, which is a quick way to just get like saucy European movies into your teenage brain. But I found some amazing stuff through, like, it was such a formative time, and yeah, I was introduced to a lot of like amazing films. I think at the time David Stratton was programming the foreign movies at SBS, so I have a lot to yeah, I owe a lot to the programming that man did.
Yeah, I think we as a society in Australia who enjoy film, you know, tip our collective hats to the hard work of Margaret and David, who hosted a amazing long-running movie critic series here. I actually sat behind Margaret Pomerantz the other night, completely unknowingly, at the performance of Refused Classification, that show about her. That was incredible, and my friend is in it. and he plays Margaret. And so I have this photo of like the back of her iconic bob. I was like, I have to take that. And it's just like her iconic grey bob looking at him with an iconic grey bob on. But yeah, they David Stratton, one of the true greats.
Yeah, I have to say though, I also watched tons of anime when I was younger, like not to be like I was that cultured and sophisticated when I was younger. I think when I was 15, my favorite film was The Pursuit of Happiness, starring Will Smith and his son. And I watched it again as an adult and was just like, this is American propaganda. It's horrible. But yeah, it's funny. Like I had this boyfriend once who his mum told me that when he was a toddler, his favorite film was Fellini's 8.5.
That's insane.
Which is, how funny.
Was there a formative anime that stuck out to you as a young Hyun being like, okay, this is me, or something that blew your mind?
Not really. I think like as a kid, like, yeah, you can be the kid that loves Fellini's 8.5, but at the same time, like you can love Naruto and Bleach and Death Note, One Piece, whatever. Like, I think the duality of man, yeah, we have layers.
I kind of love that pre-teen era where you are literally kind of influenced by the things that are just available to you. But you were no stranger to the foreign film section of Video Easy, which I imagine was close to home. I'd love to know what's a movie that feels like home to you. Maybe it's something you watched a lot. Maybe it's something that reminds you of where you grew up.
I really like revisiting certain films after not having watched them for a few years. So one that I come back to a lot is Dead Man by Jim Jarmusch, because I actually think Jim Jarmusch's Dead Man was like the first ever art house film I ever watched. And I remember being like a high schooler at Video Easy and looking at the cover of the DVD case, and it was Johnny Depp, but it was black and white. And I remember just being like, huh? And picking it up, and then it just blew my mind. It was like the first movie to be like not a conventional movie that I saw in my life. And it's nice to revisit that one, because I feel like when I was young and when I watched it, it was so mysterious to me and I didn't understand it. And then now I think I watched it maybe a year or two ago, and it's actually so funny, and the storytelling is like so fun, and yeah, I just see different things in it.
It's a great Iggy Pop performance.
Yeah, like there's just so many, like I probably didn't even know who Iggy Pop was when I saw it for the first time, so it's really cool to come back to it as an older adult and be like, oh my god, Iggy Pop was in this. Like, what the
Wearing
hell?
a dress, I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah.
That movie, I can see the cover now, him in the boat, the silver. It had that, like, it was part of that Madman imprint of indie films or something. I worked at a Video Easy, funnily enough, as a teenager, so I also saw that cover on a shelf and it too called to me. And I remember taking it home one night when I was in high school working there and being like, what is this? So I understand exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah. Another one that I like to watch with a few years in between watches is I always mess up the title, but it's something like Spring, Summer, Winter, Autumn, and Spring Again. It's a Korean film by Kim Ki-duk about a monk. And it's the same thing where I think when I was younger and I first watched it, I was so intrigued, but I felt like too young and dumb to understand it. And now I just watch it like a movie and just appreciate it for all the things that it is.
All right, that's on the watch list now. I have not seen it. Now, Hyun, you started out in photography before moving into music videos and short films, and eventually this has led you to your debut feature. When did you first realize that you could start to tell stories through a camera?
I didn't know when I was younger that it was an option to be a director. I think I didn't even know that it was a job that you could have. I think films were a sort of abstract entity that was very far away and mysterious to me. So I became somehow really obsessed with photography as a teenager. I got really nerdy and sort of taught myself how to use cameras, learning off Wikipedia because YouTube was too slow back in the day. Back when the internet was loading like a couple of frames at a minute kind of thing. Um, yeah, so I taught myself how to use cameras off Wikipedia, and I think when DSLRs first started being sort of more accessible in their price points to consumers, and I saved up for a camera that I think it was like the 7D. It was the first DSLR that had video capabilities, and so I was shooting little like fashion videos because I was shooting a lot of portraits for model agencies at the time. And I wanted to be a fashion photographer. So yeah, that led to music videos, and then eventually when I was finally making, I mean, I've jumped a few steps. Like I dropped out of art school, made a short film, then, and that short film was a proof of concept. I didn't know it at the time, but it was a short film version of French Girls that then enabled me to make Asian Girls, the short film. I got funding for that through Screen New South Wales. It's funny because it's a 6-minute short film, but we got $30,000 to make that 6-minute short film, which is still more than what the French Girls feature cost to make. But yeah, I remember on the last day of shooting Asian Girls, it was just like a 4-day shoot. And after we wrapped and said it's a wrap, I distinctly remember having this feeling of being like, oh my God, that was so doable. And making movies is very achievable and not at all an unrealistic sort of, pipe dream. And I almost felt like annoyed at all the people throughout the years who just made it out to be, this mysterious, inaccessible thing, like this idea of being a director that you either have to have like a lot of money or nepotism or a big crew, or that it's this like huge feat. Yeah, I was like, screw you. Like, it's actually so doable. Like, and kind of easy sometimes. It's not that hard. It can be hard, but yeah, it just seemed like so realistically doable.
We're so told that it's such an impossible industry, or it's so gatekept. So it's very cool to hear somebody who has made a film say, I did that, and yeah, let me add it again. Now, you said that fashion photography was what you wanted to start as a photographer, and obviously fashion is kind of the backbone of French Girls. What was it about fashion that made you think, okay, that's a world I want to take photos in and learn how to shoot people or learn how to light stuff? Like, why that world?
When I started getting really obsessed with photography, I think I was just more drawn to shooting images of people because they just felt more interesting than landscapes or like, photos of objects. So I was drawn to shooting people, and I think around that time, I remember picking up like a magazine at home. Someone had left like a Harper's Bazaar on the table, and I just remember flicking through it. Like, for a bit of context, when I was a teenager, I was very seriously ambitious about becoming like a human rights lawyer or something quite like, noble and intellectual. And so I was looking at this fashion magazine, and it just really intrigued me that you would see these editorials that were very artistic, but next to these photos of the models in like, crazy clothes, there would be the descriptions of what they were wearing. It would be like, she's wearing Louis Vuitton earrings and they cost $400 or something. And I remember just being so intrigued that there was a world where, I don't know, like, it's not that I aspired to that kind of wealth or luxury, but it felt really foreign. And yeah, something about it, I think I appreciated like the art of the photography, but I started seeing more, I guess, like fashion design that was much more on the artistic side rather than the commercial side of creativity. So there, I started like I got very nerdy about fashion and got very interested in the more sort of like artistic leaning designers, like the Japanese avant-garde designers in the 80s and 90s. Yeah, Reiko Kabu, Yoji Yamamoto. Yeah, the greatest.
goats.
And the Antwerp Six, Martin Margiela, shout out particularly, who I wrote essays about in art school. Yeah, so I was very interested, and maybe when I was younger made a point of being interested in the more sort of like intellectual arty-farty designers. I think I probably felt a bit self-conscious about being associated with like fashion in the way of, the stereotypes around the fashion industry where people think it's superficial and narcissistic and, all of the drama that comes with the way that fashion has been depicted on screen, in TV and movies.
There are many seasons of many reality shows that are just about that.
Yeah. So I think I really didn't want to be in that world.
The avant-garde Japanese designer rabbit hole is such a great rabbit hole to get in, and, especially going vintage shopping in those countries and seeing those fits. And yeah, it is so different to that other world that you speak about. You were talking about seeing these earrings that, cost a certain amount of money, and that's really what this film, I said before, really spoke to me about. Was I was watching it, and I was just taken back to my early 20s when I worked at a like boutique record label in Surrey Hills, and it was kind of my first job outside of a video store, literally. And I was surrounded by and would hang out with other very young people in the creative industries, and we were all earning such little money and living in various degrees of squalor, probably for the first time out of home, but we were pushing luxury products and lifestyles and ideas that we could never afford. And that contradiction was so central to the film, I think, and it's what hit me, and it is something I've never seen done so well, so documentary-like and not preachy at all. And that's what really affected me. So it's so cool to hear you saying this magazine. It's kind of this curiosity where you're just a normal person and you're earning maybe just like poverty line, like salary, but you're pushing these super expensive things. And it's such a unique experience from being, living at home or being a young person and then doing this. And that film just really got that, it's almost like a weird awkwardness or normalizing that, and maybe not even being aware that it's not that normal. I don't know. It's such a mixture of feelings, but that really bowled me over, and that was such a hook for me.
Yeah, maybe it's like gaining self-awareness that you're part of an ecosystem that, like, I guess as a teenager looking at that magazine, I didn't realize that the ecosystem went to that level of wealth, and then you sort of realize where you are in that system, and then it is crazy. And in the scene, it was the scene where Mia is getting the jewelry put on her in the film, and that was documentary footage that there really were 4 security guards on set that day. Because they were truly handling more than $1 million worth of jewelry, and then to think that this jewelry is so important that there are 4 human beings employed to escort it from building to building, and then it's being put on these really young women who, just have they're literally just like a prop for the jewelry to be sat on for a couple of minutes, and then. It's so weird to know that we're part of the system, but like we're sitting at a very particular end of that ecosystem, and it does give you a greater awareness of like the world that we live in.
Yeah, it's very equal parts humbling, but also perhaps overwhelming. It's this nice middle space.
Yeah, but then sorry, like with the overwhelmingness, it is like awkward and undramatic. You just sort of like sit there awkwardly noticing it all, but nothing's really happening.
Yeah, you're but a cog in something so big. I loved those scenes of, you just said with the sitting there awkwardly, just this kind of awkward conversations that happen on any, waiting room, any workspace where you kind of don't know people sometimes. It could be a university lecture, who knows, but it just happens that these people are wearing very expensive clothes and look a very particular way. And it was such a great normal. I was taking notes very annoyingly during the film just because I was hoping to chat about it. And then it just highlights how normal these people are, despite these looks that they were kind of born with, that have then dictated, this is your job, but this is what you can do. And it was like a great equalizer. You're like, oh yeah, everyone has like shit conversation when they're kind of nervous and sitting around strangers waiting.
Yeah, I find it so annoying when I watch movies set around the fashion industry and everyone's just performing, I don't know, a role that doesn't actually happen in real life. Yeah, I don't know, I was a pretty awkward and shy teenager, and that was the age that I was when I was shooting models, and a lot of the interactions I had were very awkward and sweet and quite girlish, just teenage girl to teenage girl being like, I like your bracelet. It's so averse to the imagery that we get force-fed with like America's Next Top Model, where it's just constant bitchy drama. And it does make you wonder, why is it that young women are constantly being portrayed as being stupid and awful?
I mean, that's what this film kind of, completely interrogates, I find. And it's obviously something that has stuck with you. You said that, you had a proof of concept, a short, and this is now carried to a feature, I'd say, almost 10 years later. There's obviously something about this idea that wouldn't leave you alone.
Yeah. I mean, there's a part of me when I talk about this film where I might sort of downplay it and be like, oh, it's a silly film about fashion and there's a gun and it gets shot, which is not a spoiler because you know this from the start. But yeah, at the same time, there's another part of me that's this like angry feminist that really wants to interrogate people and be like, why is it that models are the most ubiquitous images that we have of young women, whereas for images of masculinity, you have politicians and sports people. Fashion models are the most dominant images that we have of women and femininity. And then so why is it that then the stereotypical and accepted perception that we have of them is that they're stupid and superficial and narcissistic, bitchy, all of that. And to put it simply, it really is a sort of internalized misogyny. And it's not just that men say that, these models are stupid or whatever. Other women do it too. Women put down other models and say those things. And then it also works in a sort of like reverse tandem way where men can treat beautiful young women sort of over the top nicely just because they're beautiful. And the dynamics can be so strange. And I think it's, rather than, going for the low-hanging fruit and just critiquing the industry and saying that it's superficial, I think it's an opportunity to look at human behavior and how, as much as, an intellectual person who's progressive might like to think that they don't treat other people differently based on appearances, it's so obvious, and you see it all the time, that even the progressive left-wing feminists will still hold on to sort of tired stereotypes around models being a certain way. And you even see it in the Letterboxd reviews on this film, where people want to perpetuate the narrative that fashion models are stupid and awful, and they critique the film because it didn't show that enough, which is exactly the opposite of what I wanted to do.
Oh, wow. I hadn't seen that. That's crazy, because this film it's like you said, it's so easy to do the, let's say it's this, let's say it's negative, but this film is so empathetic. And that's another thing that really stood out for me. It's not just empathetic for the fashion world, which I think we see through the agency, and that the agency is depicted really really nicely. Like, it's such a nice fresh change. There's no like evil designer here, or a woman who's tortured from her own failed modeling career that like inflicts pain upon her new young prey. Like, it's a very ethical workspace, it seems like. And also we see Mia and her boyfriend, and we see a lot of these characters make questionable decisions because, you know, a movie needs conflict and stuff, but you're never humiliating them. You're never condemning them. And it just seems that empathy is really at the core. Was that something that was important to you while developing this?
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm really glad that you said that because I really worry that the fashion designer and model agent and boyfriend character come off as being villains when I really don't want them to be. I definitely just wanted to show them as people.
They totally just are normal people that if you're in a creative industry, you email or you see these people all the time. You know what I mean? It didn't feel
Yeah.
larger than life or far-fetched or anything like that.
Yeah, and when I was making the film, I sort of related to the model agent and fashion designer characters the most as the director because, you know, when you're working with talent who are non-actors or they're new to the industry or whatever, there are all these sort of ethical boundaries that you have to be mindful of and like looking. I felt very a lot of responsibility for looking after the young talent and trying my best to give them agency and autonomy in telling the story. But at the same time, you have to get the job done. And sometimes you have to push people to do things that in the moment they don't really want to do. And so I think for me, the model agent character and designer, it's like they sort of represent people who are in an industry where even when they are trying their best to be ethical and considerate and kind and whatever, but just in doing the work, it's unavoidable that you have these gray areas or, you know, lapses in communication. There can be mistakes that get made that even when you're trying your best, you're not perfect. And yeah, I think it is sort of like frustrating low-hanging fruit to just look at the fashion industry and be like, oh, look at these awful, abusive, exploitative pigs. When, yeah, I guess in my experience of working in fashion, most of the time people are just normal people, just trying to do their jobs.
And also I love that you show this other side of the fashion industry. There's this great like subplot that I loved and really reminded me of like something from a Safdie Brothers film or like a After Hours or like a 80s Scorsese with these skater guys who have a label and one's a really good bootlegger, I guess, and selling this overpriced bootleg. And it's such a fun subplot, but it's also completely exactly what the film is about. It's about the fashion world and it's just like showing a completely different side. And yeah, I'd love to know, like, where did that subplot come from?
Um, it's funny because so much of the film was made in a very intuitive way that was sort of making it up as we go along. I think so in the proof of concept short that was made more than 10 years ago, all the key elements in the feature are in that short. Like there's the narration and it ends in the same way. But I changed a lot of, and I wrote a feature film script in around 2018. But once I found Mia and then we started shooting the film with her, I changed a lot of the script to mold it to her specifically. And then with her boyfriend character, also changed a lot of the script to fit him. But we basically, the gun and the shooting of the gun was essential, and it was essential that it was Mia who shot the gun. It was undecided who was going to get shot and how the gun was going to end up in her hands. But the point where it got to her shooting someone and having her mugshot taken was essential. So we sort of backwards engineered it. And I was talking to Luca and Mia, Luca who plays the boyfriend. And I was sort of tossing up ideas with them of what would fit, like what would be something he might do in a parallel universe. And we were talking about money-making schemes and then also just around me, those skaters were around and they're just so talented. I'm actually wearing a pair of pants that one of them made.
Oh, no way.
And they're self-taught, you know, one of them taught himself over YouTube tutorials over COVID, how to make clothes, and he makes them so well. But
so sick.
yeah, so those people were sort of in my peripheries and then sort of just using what you have accessible to you. I was like, okay, money-making scheme, these boys, something to do with making clothes. Yeah, that's how we came up with the idea.
It's so fun. It feels It feels real. I know all those people without knowing them, which I do think is such a great strength of this film. And something you said earlier about working with non-actors, this film, I guess a big part of it is that there is such a documentary feel to it, and a lot of that has to do with, I guess, you working on sets for such a long time before this, but also there are so many non-actors in it. And I'd love to talk about Mia, who, I'd say this film kind of rests upon, and the whole film works because I think so much of how much we care for and see the world through Mia. Who was she when you first wrote her? And you did say that you changed when real Mia came along. Because is this true that she was always called Mia in the script and then...
Yeah, so I say that the character in the script was Mia before I met her. It's a little bit more complicated in that the two female leads in French Girls are Mia and Anya, and originally it was Anya who was the main character, but there was a character called Mia, and when I met Mia, the script made sense because Anya was actually originally meant to be a literature student. So a much more like bookish, so still quiet and an observer, which the Mia in the final film is. And it was important that the main character was, not like a loud, extroverted type. Like she was much more of an observer and, just a quiet type who doesn't talk very much. And so originally the main character was a literature student, and when I met Mia, and she's covered in tattoos, and should I tell the story of how I met Mia?
Sure.
Yeah, so I wanted to shoot some documentary footage of the behind the scenes of a fashion shoot to use as sort of material, I guess, to pitch French Girls as a feature. And I somehow met an editor at Rush magazine, and they liked my work, and I offered to shoot some stuff for them that they could use if I could also shoot some documentary stuff for my own project. And so on the first editorial shoot that I was brought on to, Mia was a model, and the documentary footage that I shot that day was so striking because she has such an expressive face. And even when she's just like staring at the wall and zoning out, her face is so expressive, and you feel like she's thinking deep thoughts or feeling tumultuous emotions or something. And I was really struck by that footage and sort of chased her down to shoot some more stuff with her. And then we just ended up shooting the whole film. But yeah, the footage from the day that I met her is in the final film, and it's in that scene with the security guards. With making a micro budget, you're a beggar, so you can't be a chooser. And so there was a lot of sort of adapting to just what we had available to us. And that was including cast and locations and everything. We didn't pay for any locations. A lot of the cast were Mia's actual friends or people, my friends, people. And often they weren't even friends. They were acquaintances. I'd be like, hey, haven't spoken to you in 5 years, but here's like a scene that I shot for a film. Would you like to be in another scene for it? And people would just come on board because it looked cool and it was exciting. And and I don't know, there's something really cool about working with non-actors, because I think people who've never been on a film set, like there's a level of like intrigue and excitement and like a feeling of just like gratitude for being included in the first place. And I think that energy is really beautiful and precious. And like I really wanted to have this energy of inclusiveness without sounding too much like a diversity hack. Like I think I'm very conscious of the fact that it's a movie about fashion and it's got cool people in it, and still trying to maintain a level of, yes, it's about cool people, but also it's not about being cool. And it's not about like, if you're not cool, you don't get to sit with us.
It feels like the set is almost like a microcosm of what the film is about, these people being thrust into something that is quite glamorous to what they're used to. It sounds very fitting. So once you had the script and you decided, okay, this is going to be a feature, what was the first practical step for you? Like, did you just start calling people? Were you getting gear? I'd love to know.
I feel like so many things happen they just happen, like, sometimes when people watch the movie, they're like, what was your intention behind this or that? And it's just like, I didn't plan for that. That just happened. Like that. In fact, I wanted the opposite of that to happen, but then it happened and we just had to deal with it. And actually it turned out better for it. But yeah, I had a friend who helped me buy a camera so that I could just really start shooting the film without relying on other people's gear. So I got a Blackmagic 6K Pro. Yeah, like I did start in the first documentary scenes that I shot. That was just me alone, and sometimes I had a friend to help me like carry the tripods and things like that. But yeah, starting out, I started shooting the film, those early documentary bits with Mia. It was just me without a producer, without our cinematographer. Those people came on board later when I had things to show them to be like, this is my idea and this is how it's going to look. I think making proof of concept material is an absolute must because people need to be able to see an example of what they're getting into, and it helps them see the vision if you can show them a version of it beforehand. So yeah, having that documentary footage, I had the stuff that I shot on that first magazine shoot that where I met Mia, and then I also was really lucky. It was fateful that I was able to get backstage on a fashion show. The one fashion show during that fashion week that year that I was able to get access to was the one fashion show that Mia was cast in.
Amazing.
So it was incredible alignments. Like there is so much in, I think, making a film that it's not about waiting until you're ready to do it. I think you just do it. And then sometimes you can be bestowed with good luck or you can be slammed with bad luck, but you just have to take it no matter what. I was talking to the filmmakers of Bird Eater, an Australian indie feature from a few years ago, and they were saying that they had some insane bad luck at some points in their shoot. Yeah, and you just have to cop it. Like, we had really insanely good luck and then some moments that were really tough, but that's just the way it is, and you don't get to choose.
What was the most, I'd say, I don't know, valuable thing in French Girls that when you see it now, that money couldn't have bought? One of those, I guess, happy accidents.
So many things. Like, probably every single shoot day had something like that where you would be like, no amount of money could have paid for this. My favorite scene in the whole film that I feel the most proud of, even though I feel like it was luck and I didn't really achieve it, is the scene where Mia is crying her eyes out while eating a sandwich in public. And, the alignment of people on set that day was what allowed that to happen, because everyone was nervous that she wouldn't be able, well, I don't know, I say everyone, but I was really nervous that Mia wouldn't be able to do it, because it's a really demanding ask of any actor, any very accomplished actor. Even for very experienced actors, it's a lot to ask them to cry their eyes out in front of a lot of people while eating a sandwich. So that was always in the script, and I really, like, it was a scene that I just really wanted in the film. But this whole film was Mia's first time acting, and she didn't really have experience as an actor before that, but it's a testament to her, I guess, natural talent. But also that day on set, playing one of the extras, one of the people that stare at Mia while she cries into her sandwich, was my friend Shrongwu, who's an amazing actor. And, she was just there because she's a good friend of mine helping me out playing this extra part. But on the way to set, when we were moving to the location where she does the scene, I told Mia that it was okay if she couldn't cry, that I just sort of, it's a sort of like rule, I guess, in like directing, if you have actors that need to cry, that if you put pressure on them, it will make it a lot harder for them. So you should never like put pressure on them to cry. So I tried to just tell her that it was fine if she wasn't able to do it. And I jokingly said that we could get an onion and we could fake the tears with the onion if we needed to. And on the way to set, Mia was like, oh, I'm just going to drop by the Woolworths. Does anyone want anything? And we're like, no, we'll see you there. And so when we were setting up the cameras and stuff at the location, Mia showed up with an onion from Woolworths. Because that was how much that even she wasn't sure if she could do it. And in the end, my friend Shurong, who was the amazing actor, I was like, oh my gosh, like Shurong's an amazing actor and knows how to cry on camera on demand. And she coached Mia through it. And they did these like insane acting exercises. I don't know if you've ever been to an acting class, but they do crazy things.
No, I haven't. I've seen it parodied, but maybe it's not too far from what it actually is.
I mean, that it works. Have to say, like, don't know how it works, but it works because Mia did it and it was incredible. And I think everyone got goosebumps as it was happening in front of us. And after we cut, because she was bawling and bawling while eating.
It's a big cry. It's a big
cry. Yeah. And in the script, it's written that she has to be like sobbing very loudly. Like it can't just be like a little sniffle. It has to be like her weeping. Yeah. After we cut the shot, she couldn't stop and she just kept crying.
Wow.
Because it just kept coming out of her. But it was an incredible experience. And it's just, it doesn't matter how much money you have, you know, for that level of things aligning. I don't think it could have happened if Shurong wasn't there that day. I feel like something of the beauty of us passing a Woolworths on the way to set and Mia stopping in to get the onion.
A device used to make one cry. Like it's very symbolic. It's not lost.
I have footage of her sitting at the table with the sandwich and the onion, and I'm so glad we filmed some of that because the onion is very symbolic.
It is so symbolic. Look, you wrote and directed this film, but you also edited it. What was it like sitting down with everything after? Well, did you sit down with it after the shoot had finished, or was it something that you were also? Because I, as far as I understand, this film was kind of shot over an extended period in like certain blocks. Were you editing it as it was coming, or was it something you kind of said, all right, I'm going to wait till it's done and jump into it at the end?
I mean, it's a lot of work even just to prepare the footage before you start editing. So, we had an assistant editor who was sort of cataloging all the footage and relabeling, cutting off the tops and tails of every shot. There's a huge system that goes into sort of preparing the files before they even start to get edited. So we're doing a lot of the, what do you call it, like front end or back end before you even begin the work. And I think I was editing because we shot the film on weekends, but we divided the film into 4 blocks. So we would do 1 month where I think we'd do 6 shoot days in 1 month and then take a month or 2 off, do another 6 shoot days. And then altogether it was, I think, 30 shoot days, something like that. But we would take breaks because Dimitri, our cinematographer, had to go away to shoot a film in Scotland. It's a Polish documentary called The
Golden Spurtle. Yeah.
I love telling people that we had to delay filming because of a international porridge championships documentary.
Well, we all have priorities.
Yeah. But at the same time, Mia was flown over to France to be in a Jean-Paul Gaultier campaign, and even that was amazing to be able to say that I was making a fashion movie with a model.
You could do a spin-off movie just on that alone while you're delaying the main film, like that's like movie B right there.
Yeah, I think all the delays, like it almost took 4 years to finish the film, but all the delays were blessings in disguise because it gave us time to recalibrate and look over the footage, and it was really like going to film school. I never went to film school, but I feel like I learned so much. And by the sort of second half of filming, we were like a well-oiled machine. We'd figured out our process, and everything was moving along very quickly.
The shoot process you said was like 4 years, and because it was, I guess, shot over such a long period, and you're looking at it later, does French Girls feel like a period piece to you, like a particular moment of Sydney fashion, your own life? Like that must feel so strange.
We didn't shoot it over 4 years. It took 4 years to finish, so that's including editing. Yeah, but we did finish most of the shooting by the end of 2023. So
Hmm.
it is crazy how quickly Sydney is changing. And I was just in Marrickville yesterday and saw for the first time that there's a McDonald's there now on Illawarra Road. And every single time I go back to Marrickville, I'm just like, what? Everything's different. Everything's changing. But yeah, there's a lot in the film. Like we filmed the V sets before they were decommissioned by so the trains, the V set, the old country trains, which no longer
I think somebody clapped or something during
yeah.
the
It's
Ritz one.
actually it's so funny, the letterbox reviews, the amount of train nerds in the comments saying that we put the character on the wrong train because he was going here, but those trains don't go there. And
It's
a
so.
lot of
It's
it,
always a train guy in the comments. There's always a train guy.
but many, not a train guy. There's just like hordes of them talking
That's
about the freaking train.
insane. I swear I'm not one of
Yeah.
them. I'm not a train guy.
I mean, respect to the train nerds, but yeah, lots of complaints and compliments about the trains that were featured in the film. Parts of King's Cross that were there for decades and are now gone. Like the news agency that we shot is
I
now
know,
refurbished.
and I
And
saw that. Even I was like, "Oh, that guy's not there anymore." It's really
yeah,
nice. You managed to like make a movie that feels so specifically Sydney without ever leaning on that postcard version of it.
yeah. I mean, it's funny how much having done all the press for the film when it was coming out, a lot of interviews sort of swayed towards talking about how this film is so such a Sydney film, and was it intentional to showcase Sydney like that? And it definitely wasn't the intention. It just happened, because I'm just using what I have accessible to me. And I've lived in Sydney my whole life, and it's the closest location for me to shoot. So yeah, I didn't mean to become like the latest ambassador for Sydney with this film, but
Well, you
yeah,
have. I do feel like it is a crucially Sydney film, and Sydney is, so many films are made here, but seldom is Sydney in it. It's at the backdrop or some fictional city or it's a studio somewhere. So I do think you have become somewhat of an ambassador. Can you think of like, are there any like Sydney movies that I guess Sydney is Sydney in it that stick out to you when you
yeah,
consider French Girls and where it
yeah.
belongs?
There's Friends and Strangers, which was a recent film a few years back, but I guess half of it is set outside of Sydney. It starts with the characters camping, but when it gets back into the city, you see parts of it that feel very Sydney. Um, I think about like the films in the 90s that back when the AFC, the Australian Film Commission, was really funding Australian films. And do you remember there was a movie called like Young Einstein or
Oh
something like
yeah.
that?
Do you know
Is that what
what?
it was called?
It is called that, and I have a
Yeah.
very formative experience. I was so young, and my father took me to see it, and we're the only people in the theater at this small. I grew up on the south coast of New South Wales, and it was a small, like, tiny theater. And then I think because we're the only people in there, the projectionist invited me to see how projections were, and so I have such a formative memory of that film equating to that. But no, I don't really remember the film, but I know it is. Like you said, it's that era where so much was made here.
Yeah. I mean, I also don't remember much of the film, but I remember this like the iconic scene in that film where he's running like outside of the opera house, and it's just we just don't see that much
No,
anymore. Yeah.
no. I feel like French Girls really is a step in the right direction of getting away from that cultural cringe that seems to be a hangover from, I don't know, generations above us that we've inherited. And it's just, it's very cool. I think Sydney is very cool. I think it's a cool place and it's starting to feel cool. And I don't know, I feel like it's really hit me. And I do feel like it's this very important film that's really speaking to the culture right now and to young people. And yeah, I just see this being like very prominent and it's so cool.
Oh, I hope so. I hope we get a good distribution run, and yeah, we're still very early in our festival run, so still figuring out how the fate of the film. how much of a reach it will have. Yeah, it's a lot of work to like. It's funny having so many people like congratulate me or whoever made the film with me. We get congratulations for finishing the film, but the work just does not end, and doing the work to get the film out to reach an audience is as much work as making the film itself. And yeah, so I still feel like I'm still working on the film.
Yeah, there's that famous quote that like films are never finished, they're abandoned. And it feels like you haven't abandoned this and it's still very much early days. And that's exciting, I think. Like I can't wait to see where this goes. I was reading a lot of your interviews, and I really loved the interview you gave with Monster Children and how you spoke about how skateboarding, because I saw, I like to do my research. I saw you have a bunch of Instagram memories of you skating, and I was like, okay, you're a skater. Or you skate, maybe you don't identify as a skater, but you can skate. And then I read this interview and I really loved that link you made about just skateboarding being so similar to a film set and people sitting around for a long time, the clothes being important, trying to get a perfect shot. I'd love to know how much did that, I guess that culture of skating, how much do you think that shaped you as a filmmaker or even photographer?
I don't know that it shaped the filmmaking itself. I think just being a part of that world and having a, a big part of what I really appreciate about being in that community is that you meet a lot of people that you wouldn't normally meet. And your interactions are interactions that are just different types of interactions. Like there are people at the skate park that I see more often than like some of my closest friends. I have close friends that I only see like once every 2 months kind of thing. But there'll be like some guy at the skate park that I see 3 times a week. I see him more than my mom, but I don't know his name. And I think these familiar strangers just as much are a part of the communities that we're in. And there are different ways to be friends with people. There are different types of relationships. And I just like thinking of the world as everyone's got a role. There is something in the fashion world where there is something genuinely cool, and the je ne sais quoi and the X factor, that's real. But I think that the realness of that can exist alongside the ordinariness of like people, uncool people or ordinary faces. And they are like, the uncoolness of them is cool in its own way. And there's a beauty in the ordinary faces. I really wanted to have as many like ordinary faces as I could to play the roles that were just ordinary people. And yeah, I don't know, like a lot of the male roles in the film were filled by the extended skater community that I know. And I don't know, it can be such a beautiful thing to like tap into these worlds. I think sometimes people like assume that I have like a lot of resources, and then when they hear that I made it for very little money, they assume that I'm like really good at networking or something, or that I just sometimes they're like, oh, is it Nash? Like, what did Nash do for you? Our executive producer is probably like the most famous person connected to the film. And
he was
they're
a
like,
stunt guy I worked on a Star Wars movie when I was 15. And
oh my gosh.
he was the stunt guy on it while his brother was also in it. So that was my first exposure to Nash.
Yeah. And people assume that like, oh, it must have been Nash who like made it possible to get the film made. And it's like, no, it's actually just having friends who have cousins who have access to a jackhammer. Like, that's all it is.
I love what you said about just these people that you see every day who you might know their names, but you just see so often. There's something so comforting about that, and they could be doing extraordinary things. And it's kind of, I guess, at that place, at the skate park, everyone's equal. It's kind of something nice about that.
Yeah, like they're the characters in your life, in the like movie that is your life, and they fill up important space in the background of your life, and you are that background actor
To someone
for somebody
else.
else. Yeah. And
Yeah. The person I see on the train every day, I'm the person they see on the train every day. You know what I mean? At the same time. And we don't talk to each other. I don't know what they do, but we see each other every day. And that's how I know, all right, today has started. I've seen this
yeah,
person.
I don't know. There's something like really, to me, beautiful in, the ordinariness of it all, and that, yeah, there isn't a lot of life isn't dramatic, and that those things just fill out your life.
Well, I think a lot of that is in French Girls, particularly those scenes with just, people sitting, talking in between the big moments and not just talking about guns or mugshots, but the shoots themselves. It's very fitting, and I think your film captures that perfectly. So the film did premiere at Sydney Film Festival. What do you remember most about the opening night? Because I can imagine that night was somewhat of a blur for you. Is there something that sticks out?
Oh, it was massively a blur. I feel like I was quite nervous, but in the lead up to it, but then something came over me and I was extremely calm when I was having to introduce the film to all those people. And I wish I had something more interesting to say.
No, look, that's
Yeah.
that getting that perspective, that calmness, that's interesting unto
I mean,
itself.
yeah, I think like a lot of people have asked me, like, how's it feel now? Like, they're like, has your life changed? Like, are people wanting to meet with you? Are you getting opportunities? And like, yeah, a little bit, but I'm also just like, things are exactly the same as before the festival in that, like, yeah, I do get occasional opportunities and meeting cool like producers or whatever who might not have known about me before, but I think I really like relish in the work and the everydayness of it. And then those big celebratory moments are actually very overwhelming, and you don't have a lot of space to like relish in the congratulations, like the barrage of congratulations, because it is like so overwhelming. It's like people you haven't seen for years, like your old friends. I had friends from high school that I hadn't seen since high school coming to some of our screenings, and it's amazing to see everyone again, but it is extremely overwhelming to interact with like everyone you've ever known in the space of 3 days. And so these celebratory moments are like amazing and awesome, but they also are so fleeting, and it's a little bit of a relief to like get back into the rhythm of normal life and to just like do the work. And I really enjoy doing the work. I think it's like I don't really resonate with the ways of being where people talk about filmmaking as this like perpetually stressful, traumatizing ordeal. I like to like work in a calm way that is joyful and like fun, and I like doing the work. It's not stressful to me. There are times when it's stressful, but it rarely is.
Look, it really comes across in the film. It is despite some of the topics, it's a very calm film. It's a very easy to watch, sit back and let this thing wash over you. It actually really comes across. And hey, now you have early bed nights again after this premiere. I know that's something that you said a return to normal sleep patterns must be great.
Yeah, just being able to like do your dishes. Dishes start to pile up when the festival's on.
We got to have clean dishes. Look, is there one particular thing that somebody has said to you, whether they're from your life or not, about this film being released that's really stuck or with you or surprised you?
Yeah, like again with the barrage of like positive feedback, it does wash over you. And then I wish that I could maybe have those like meta glasses that just record everything, because you do forget when you're getting like such a high intensity of people like talking about the film to you, that you forget who you've spoken to and you forgot who said what. And I have gotten really heartfelt messages, just like DMs on Instagram, where people wrote like a huge letter to me about what they loved about the film, and it fills me with so much relief that they got what was intended, that they understood the film. And even like hearing you talk about it, I'm like, oh, you really got what I was going for. And because there's always responses that it's fine to have responses when people don't resonate with your film, like that's just a part of life or whatever. But it's a real relief to know that others sort of see what I'm doing and they get it. And yeah, there was somebody that wrote, oh, I guess it is a spoiler if I say it, but basically the ending of the film, the ending is very particular. And even while I was editing it, sometimes when I was editing the ending, this is corny, but it would like make me cry. I'd be like editing my own film and I would move myself to tears.
You wrote, you directed, and edited yourself to crying. That's the sign of a good film. That you're so close to it, and it still had that effect.
But when people have that response where the ending made them cry, is like it makes me feel like, oh, good, like they're seeing what I'm seeing, and that's nice. And other people see the ending and they're like, what was that? But that's fine.
And look, you carried this film for so long, so it must be quite equal parts exciting and strange to hear people weigh in with something that's very much a part of you for so long. Yeah, you working on another idea right now.
Yeah. I'm going to be writing in July the first draft or a draft, the newest draft of my next feature, which is based off the short film Asian Girls, which was the film I made in 2018. And it's a horror movie. It's a ghost story. It's got Korean shamans. Totally different genre, but I think there are sort of thematic through lines between French Girls and the next one.
That's so cool. Will you be keeping the same name? Are we going for like a girls duology, a trilogy?
I have a third project which sort of synthesizes the ideas of it all, but you'll have to wait and see to make sense of it, because
love it.
It's too much of a story to explain it all.
Is that I love the short Asian Girls. It just feels so tonally different to French Girls too. That's very exciting. This kind of, are you using the same cast, or is it kind of gonna be a fresh start? Or
there's a lot. So similarly to how the French Girls short is very different but similar to the feature, I think the Asian Girls short has sort of key elements that the feature will have, but very different. When I made Asian Girls as a short film, it was my first bit of filmmaking. I'd never worked with actors before that. I'd never done anything with dialogue, and that's why there's no dialogue in the film. It's more like a sort of glorified music video. I shouldn't undercut my own work like that, but like it kind of
awesome.
is. It's a tonal piece. It's a mood piece. There's not a lot of story. There's not a lot of character. But yeah, I sort of, because that was made in 2017, 2018. So for me, that's like quite old work that, you know, I've grown a lot as a director since then. And so, yeah, I get why people would be like, whoa, it's so different to French Girls. But yeah, the feature will be narrative horror movie with actors that talk. And I think stylistically, you'll sort of see the through lines.
That's so exciting. I am very happy to hear that. And look, one final question I just love to leave you with is, what is a film that reminds you why you love movies?
I feel like, so when people ask, what are your top 5 favorite films? I have a stock answer that I prepared earlier so I don't get like caught in the, you know, put on the spot.
Very smart. Somebody, I do exactly the same. So
yeah,
look,
so I'm just going to tell you my top 5 because that's
Hit
like
me.
the easiest way.
Please. I asked for 1 and you get 5. That's such a better deal. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I've already talked about 2 of them to you.
I had a feeling that I was like, okay, I'm sure Dead Man's in there. I'm sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I always start by saying Kill Bill because that's nice and easy. Everyone knows Quentin Tarantino. Everyone knows Kill Bill. But yeah, I love it. I think it's, I think a lot of people, when they think of Quentin Tarantino, they think of like hot women doing violent things. But Kill Bill is about motherhood, and I think he's been quoted as saying it's his most personal film. And yeah, the monologue that Uma Thurman has, just one of the monologues near the end. I'm just like a mess whenever I see it. It's like amazing writing.
That film had such an effect on me. I saw it, I think maybe underage when it came out in cinemas because it was R-rated. I had a car accident. Like I was fine. I just ran into a no stopping sign. I was like so shaken by the film. And then I literally turned around and went to see it again. And I just abandoned the scene. I was like, I kind of freaked out and was like, I don't know what to do. So I completely hear you. Have you seen
Wow.
the whole bloody affair? I know they released it last year in the States, but it didn't play here, which
What
is
is
so
that?
that is the whole it's re-edited and it's one whole film.
Oh, right.
And I guess removes that little bit of her driving at the start of 2.
Okay. I'm not enough of a Quentin Tarantino fan girl to be knowing about that, but I did always consider Kill Bill 1 and 2 to just be one movie.
Hey, well now
Um,
it's I think it's coming out on physical this year in Australia, which I've never seen it. And I'm really want to see that.
yeah, cool. I don't own a DVD player and I'm not a huge physical media gal, but that's cool to hear. I think Kill Bill 1 and 2 should have always been considered just the one film.
Amen.
Yeah, but I will just rattle off the rest of the list for you. Second is Yi Yi by Edward Yang. Oh yeah, because the reason why I start with Kill Bill is because the rest of them are obscure, foreign, old films.
I saw Ye Ye for the first time this year. I just want to say
Yeah,
I love it. Beautiful film.
it's an incredible film. And then there's Summer, Winter, Autumn, Spring, and Summer again, or Spring. I messed up the title, but the Kim Gi-duk film. Dead Man, which those two I've spoken about, and then I think the last one is Amour by Michael Haneke.
Mm.
Yeah, Old People Dying, classic.
Hyun, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. Like I said, this film has really had an adverse effect on me, which I've been telling anybody who I can about it. And it is so great. I can't wait to see it again somehow. I can't wait to hear other people falling in love with it. And I am so genuinely excited to see what you come up with next. It's been an honor talking to you.
Thanks so much. Thank you for having me.
Movies. Popcorn.
That indescribable feeling